Thanks for staying with us here on the AM show. So yesterday, Roland Walker, we started this talk about this no ambulance syndrome. It's actually an area that we've been there so many times, even on the show. And that little boy lying in that hospital in Winneba needing
yes, an ambulance.
Some other care, which meant that he had to be transported to Accra, and there was no means of transporting him. Brought back this whole issue of no ambulance, and the situation still persists.
Yeah, definitely. And we spoke to the director, Professor Zakaria, who gave us a perspective of all that needs to be done. For example, he said that at least, ideally, we needed to have out of every 25,000 people, one ambulance. And when I spoke to him off air, I said, well, Ashama constituency has 150,000 people. It means that we will need 6 in the constituency. But it's not ideal. The whole of Greater Accra has only 7. And we're 4.2 million people.
Incredible.
So that's a reality.
Yeah.
But today we decided to do a different conversation altogether.
Yeah, exactly. We're asking the question of, is this a case of government's lack of commitment to emergency care? But first of all, we have to really appreciate from the point of view of what persists in the other regions. We can't just sit here in Accra and think that we don't have enough ambulances. How about the other regions? We want to quickly, do a tour and speak to some of our colleagues. We have Martina Bugri in the northern region. We've got Richard Kojunyako in the central region. We're going to be speaking to them. And then Maxwell Agbagba, our roving man, will have a conversation with some citizens this morning in a community. It could be very close to you, or it could even be your community. So let's begin with Martina. Good morning to Martina.
Good morning, Mama V.
Martina, this issue of ambulance, is it a big issue for the people of Tamale, for instance?
I would say it's a big issue. Yesterday, after the news of what happened in the central region, when I hit the streets to speak to people, most people raised this concern. And they said they have had instances where they would have the need for an ambulance, and you are either made to look for money and fuel the ambulance, or there is none at all, especially those in the various districts. I spoke to somebody from the Bole district, and he says that they had to look for money elsewhere to fuel an ambulance. And I spoke to somebody from Karuga, and he's Egushegun says that there's no even an ambulance in that area. And so when there's the need, they would have to rely on Tamale Teaching Hospital to go there and bring the referral case. Yesterday, I went to the ambulance service in Tamale here. The director said he couldn't speak because he needed clearance from the headquarters. But I could count about 7 ambulances which were all down, broken, and sitting on stools. And so it's a reality, it's a big issue. And I spoke to one guy who said he actually witnessed an accident that happened. The woman fell off their tricycle. And for like 30 minutes, they had called for an ambulance, and there was none. They finally had to put the woman in a taxi to be transported to the hospital.
Martina, so this director wouldn't speak to you on record, but could you count, apart from the broken down ambulances, any functioning ambulance?
I didn't see any there, and I was there for like close to 20 minutes. There was no functional ambulance that I saw. And it's my route that I use very often. I have seen probably 1 or 2 functional ones, but most of those there are broken down.
We want to take a listen to somebody that you spoke to in that interaction. Here we go.
There is this situation in Tamale that each time there is an accident, people find it difficult to get ambulance services. And then just yesterday, 3 days ago, there was this accident that occurred just in front of the Tamale town itself, that's the Tamale center, just opposite the taxi rank. I was just at Fidelity Bank, that's former Fidelity Bank, and then the yellow driver was parked at the traffic light, and then the pickup came and hit from behind. There was this woman that fell out of that yellow, and then the woman was unconscious, and all of a sudden, what we realized was that They were calling for ambulance, but it wasn't coming. We were there for a very long time, and then the ambulance wasn't coming. But we had to get a taxi and then pick the woman to the hospital. If we didn't get a taxi and take the woman to the hospital, it would have been something else. Maybe the woman would have passed away. So we urge the government to find ways to solve this problem, because it's causing a lot of problems in Tamale, and then we wish that the government do something about it.
Okay, so Martina, this is a gentleman that you spoke to narrating this incident with us. So what's the plan? We'll get the director to speak on record, because we still need to know how bad the situation is in terms of ambulance.
I was told to return today, later in the day, and if he gets clearance, he would be able to speak to me. So I'll be going there later this morning to find out whether he's been given the authorization to speak and what the situation is in the northern region.
Okay. All right, Martina, we'll leave it here. Hopefully by tomorrow we would have gotten some firm answers that we can share with our viewers. So Martina Bugri telling us about the situation, Roland, in the northern region.
Yes, and usually you get to find that the more you move from the south to the middle belt to the northern parts of our country, for all sectors, you get to find that the less and less facilities and even the institutions, whether they are parastatals or other MDAs, they don't tend to function properly like you find down south to the middle belt. And that's it's a problem that we need to fix, because you get to find that the healthcare needs are more, the poverty levels have increased, and that is where we need to provide the more critical healthcare. As far as that is related.
Let's go to the central region. Let's speak to Richard Kojonyako. Richard, it was yesterday, and I think it was Sunday, we needed an ambulance. Monday, we're still looking for an ambulance to transport this young boy who was involved in this accident. And then eventually yesterday, there was an ambulance, correct?
Yes, there was. The national security came there, and then they ensured that an ambulance came for the boy. And so the boy was eventually transferred to the 37 Military Hospital. But beyond this, you know, the accident that happened, that the Deputy Minister of Communications was involved, Gajanda. When the accident happened, they were also equally looking for an ambulance. And eventually, they call it the Abuso Kaimacho. It's just like the small care trucks that that you see in town. And that is the vehicle that conveyed them from that village to the Gregory Hospital. So if there was any ambulance around, that was the duty, or that was the duty of the ambulance, to even give them some first aid before eventually the military aircraft would have been called in. But let's get back to the Winneba story. So the Winneba Trauma and Specialist Hospital was ostensibly established there because that place became an accident-prone area and people came with all sort of emergency cases, and so that hospital was established. So to get the doctor saying that, well, that is the kind of difficulty they go through when they have some patients who they need to attend to quickly and urgently. There isn't any ambulance, and he says that many people die eventually because there is no ambulance in the first place. So, what happened in the case of the deputy minister, he was lucky, and a military aircraft was called in to come and convey them. So, had it been any ordinary person, the person would have to wait a while longer, and then if maybe any bad thing would have happened, the person would have maybe died or something. I've also been monitoring the situation in Cape Coast, for instance, and at the Cape Coast Metropolitan Hospital, there isn't any ambulance. I cannot even see one that is even a malfunctioned one that is even sitting there. That you can
okay,
see that
is it that there isn't, you perhaps didn't see, or that's the biggest facility in the central region? They don't have any ambulance at all?
Well, the doctor says that he cannot specifically say that there is an ambulance, because they get the ambulance as and when they demand or they get. But that facility, I tell you, that should have an ambulance because of the kind of services they provide, because a lot of accidents happen on the Accra, Cape Coast, and there should be at least 2 ambulances to attend to. And so most of the time hear of accident, you go to the scene, and people would still be there 30 minutes, 1 hour before eventually an intervention happens. They call in an ambulance or any other vehicle to convey them. Most of the cases, they put them behind or on the bucket of the pickups, and then they send them. And you can imagine if some people require some critical urgent attention, then that one would not be or would not happen to those people. And so he did not categorically say that they have a stationed ambulance at the Winneba Trauma and a specialist hospital. So that is coming from the doctor.
Is there, like, you can identify an ambulance service in Accra, for instance, or in Tamale? Is there a place that you can call an office for the ambulance service, that you can find ambulances lined up, for instance, waiting to get that emergency call?
There is none that I know of, because when that accident even happened Friday, on Sunday, they had to call the National Ambulance Service from Accra. So if there was one center like that in the central region, they would have called and they would have ignored the Accra one. So it means that in the central region, they do not have a center like an ambulance, that provides some kind of service like that, where in some emergency cases, they would call for them to come and attend to them quickly. Even at the Cape Coast Teaching Hospital, you find about 2 of the ambulances that have malfunctioned, but you get like 2 ambulances that come in and go more often than not. There is a special route that was specially designed because of the traffic situation from the Pleiadi Junction to the Cape Coast Teaching Hospital. And so there's a special route that has been designed, and then the ambulance use that route often. And so for the Cape Coast Teaching Hospital, I cannot say that they do not have ambulance. At least I've seen about 2 ambulances that run, that come in and that go to attend to people that need such services.
Very interesting. Richard Kojunyako, we'll have to leave it here. We're crossing over now to Maxwell Agbagba. Maxwell is with a group of taxi drivers, and they would often use their taxis as emergency vehicles in situations of emergencies. Maxwell is having a conversation with them on this. Oh, Maxwell. Maxwell is joining us via phone. Maxwell?
Yeah, hello, Mama.
Okay, Maxwell, first of all, tell us exactly where you are with these taxi drivers who sometimes serve as emergency services with their rights.
Okay, so we are somewhere in Accra, and help us. So we don't have to put out the name of help the hospital where we are right now. So it was difficult for us to put out the name, but somewhere around Mammoth, that's where we are at this moment. And then I met that driver.
Maxwell, I'm struggling to hear you. If you can reposition yourself.
Yeah. Hello, Mama. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you better now.
Yes. So I'm saying that we are some meters away from help us here at Mammoth. And we have some taxi drivers who actually sometimes ask themselves to use their people to transport patients to different hospitals. And they have been telling you about some of the challenges that they go through and how they think that if there were emergency services, if there were ambulances, some of the people who died before they get to the hospital.
No, I'm afraid we have to let Maxwell go. It's difficult to hear exactly what he's saying, but the understanding is he's interacting with some taxi drivers. Hopefully, we get a video of that interaction, and we'll continue tomorrow on this. But we want to speak to the head of operations, the National Ambulance Service, Foster Anson Brijan, is joining us via phone. Good morning to you, sir. Thank you for your time.
Good morning.
Okay, so, we've been going back and forth with the number of ambulances that we have functioning. Can you help us with the number? Hello, Mr. Anson Brijan. Hello, sir. Okay, looks like, our lines are not so clear. Let me try again. Mr. Foster Anson Brijan, can you hear me? Okay, not quite. So we're just going to bring back that conversation with the head of operations, the National Ambulance Service, as and when we do get him. Okay, hopefully we can get a better connection now. Let's see. Mr. Foster Anson Brijan, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you, please.
Okay. So I was asking you to help us understand the number of functioning ambulances that we have today.
Okay, thank you very much. As we speak now, nationally, we have about 45 ambulances functioning.
Okay. When you say functioning, like we have everything in there. This is a proper ambulance. It's not that we have a vehicle branded ambulance, but we don't have the right equipment in them.
Yes, please. In terms of the functioning ambulances, they are well equipped with the necessary personnel who are also trained to respond to any kind of emergency.
Okay.
Okay.
So we've got 45. Can you give us a breakdown as to how many each region has?
Well, as we speak now, I am not in Accra, so I don't have the current update. But on top of my head, I can say that for Greater Accra, we have 6 ambulances functioning.
6.
6.
Okay.
Yes. Central region, we have only 2 functioning ambulances. And if you go to Eastern region, I'm told about 8 ambulances were functioning at the time.
About
I was
8.
living in Accra. 8.
Okay. And you left Accra when?
About a week ago. I'm now at our training school.
Okay.
Yes,
all right. And the Ashanti region, would you know?
Ashanti region, it was about 4 functioning ambulances. Yeah.
Okay. There's also the Volta region.
Volta region, I can count of about 4. Okay.
4. And the Northern region?
Yes. Northern region was 3. That is, 3 in the Northern region.
Okay. So at least there's an ambulance in all the 10 regions.
Yes, at least there is an ambulance functioning in each of the regions. The only thing is that when it happens, depending on where the incident, the location of the ambulance may need that the ambulance will have to travel a longer distance before responding to an emergency. So that is our main challenge now.
So are there centers in all the regions?
Can you come?
Are there centers? Is there an ambulance service center in each region?
Yes, please. You know, our stations are strategically located in the main road corridors so that they will be able to respond to emergencies as they occur.
So where would I find the one in the central region?
Central region, from Kaswa, we have a station at Kaswa. We have a station at Winneba. We have a station at Apam Junction. We have also a station at Mankasim on the Accra Kipus Road.
Okay. So all these stations along the central region, do you have an ambulance, the one in Kaswa, the one at Winneba, the one at Mankasim? Would I find an ambulance in each of these stations?
Yes. Currently, the one at Kaswa is functioning. The one also at Winneba is also functioning. But Mankasim one is not functioning now. It's broken down and we send it to Accra for repair.
So can you help us appreciate if there was an ambulance in Winneba, why there was a difficulty in getting an ambulance between Sunday and then eventually there was one available yesterday?
Yeah, my check after the incident, my check indicates that yes, there was an ambulance and the dispatch center, which is located at Winneba, was actually in contact with the hospital because they got the information about the accident. And a call came to the central regional, which is the dispatch center, which is also located at Winneba. So they inquired from the hospital and they were told that the doctor who was supposed to do the referral to enable them to go for the case was not available. So they should hold on. So they were already waiting for the call to come to enable them to move to the hospital. And later, a call came from Accra to our dispatch center in Accra. So they moved to the hospital to go and take that case to Kolebu.
Okay, so that...
And when they got to the place, the doctor who was supposed to do the referral was not ready. That's why they waited for a longer period before.
Okay. So that delay
yes,
was not because there was no ambulance.
Yes, not that there was no ambulance. And
Okay.
I also know that even the hospital, the Town Hospital itself has an ambulance there.
Okay. So
Yes.
when people call for the ambulance, do they have to pay?
We operate two services. We have what we call emergency service and non-emergency service. For emergency service, whereby a hot case like what has happened, where somebody is involved in a road traffic crash, that one is emergency. For that matter, we don't ask for anything when we are called to respond to such a call.
Okay. All right.
It is only when somebody who is stabilized in a hospital, whereby they need to move the person to a higher hospital for higher
That's when
care,
you pay.
and that is when they are
Okay.
asked to support the
Okay.
ambulance with fuel.
All right. I was going to ask you. Okay, you have to support with fuel.
Fuel,
Just
not
before
that
you
we are
go.
charging.
Okay. Just before you go, real quick, is there a central number that anybody can call when they have emergencies?
Yes, just dial 193 or 999. If you dial that number, it will go to a central point and they will ask you whether you need, if you dial the 999, they will ask of whether it is police, fire or ambulance.
Okay.
And then when you dial, you tell them, then they will redirect your call. But if you dial the 193, that one goes straight into our dispatch center.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for your time, sir. That's Head of Operations National Ambulance Service. And we have to bring on Becky with some show business brought to us by Awake Purified Drinking Water.